Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, and today we are back with another exciting tutorial. So in this tutorial we are going to talk about Logstash Elasticsearch and Kibana. So this will be about the ELK stack. So if you have seen previous few tutorials, we already discussed about Elasticsearch and Kibana, how to set up those things in my previous tutorial. So this will be a continuation of that. So we want to talk about the ELK stack. So we are going to see in this tutorial how we can set up Elasticsearch, Kibana, and also Logstash. So we'll be using Logstash, some configuration, so which will send some data to Elasticsearch and which can be used for Kibana. So that's how the overall ELK stack. We are not going to use other configurations out of this, like beats and file beats or those kind of things. That will continue in the upcoming tutorial. So this tutorial is more about how to set up Logstash, Elasticsearch, and Kibana, this stack. So you can continue your next tutorial on that. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, great. So what we will do is, first of all, we will try to understand what is Logstash. So if you are not sure about what is Elasticsearch, what is Kibana, I would ask you to please check the previous tutorial, which I will link into this video description as well. So the whole playlist will be there. You can refer that. So to get started, Logstash is an open source data collection engine with real-time pipeline capability. So what you need to understand is Logstash is a data collection engine which will collect this data and which will send it to Elasticsearch. So we'll also talk about how that happens and what is the Logstash pipeline and all those things. So that will come into the later part of this tutorial. So Logstash can dynamically unify data from disparate sources and normalize the data into a destination of your choice. So it's not like Logstash can collect the data from one kind of data source. It can use multiple data sources, and you can normalize those data into the output or destination where we want to send. And the Logstash, we can use horizontally scalable data processing pipeline, and it works very well with Elasticsearch and Kibana. So that's why we are using a Logstash as part of ELK stack. So that's what we are going to see in this tutorial. And Logstash have more than 200 plugins. So it have a lot of plugins which you can use, and also it's very flexible for creating and contributing plugins from our end. It's also, so we can also create our own plugins to use it along with Logstash. Now, as I said, Logstash, it works very well with Elasticsearch, but it doesn't mean we have to use only with Elasticsearch. So, and also it can use multiple kind of input sources, whether it can be a file or it can be a web-based. So different kind of file input it can take, and it can send it to multiple kind of destination, like it can be an analysis or for monitoring, or it can be an alerting system, or it can be Elasticsearch. So that's one of few of the benefit of using Logstash. And how Logstash works is, as I said, Logstash, this event processing pipeline, it has a pipeline which have 3 stages. So the input will be coming, then you can have some filtering in between, and then you can send it for output. So some of the commonly used inputs are like a file system. You can get the content from files, or it can be syslog, or it can be Redis, or it can be beats. So beats is something which will be commonly we use it now. In the upcoming tutorial, we'll be using beats and Logstash, Elasticsearch, and Kibana. So beats can collect this data and send to Elasticsearch. Now there are also some of the commonly used outputs. So these are some of the commonly used outputs, like Elasticsearch we already spoke, and it can be also sent like a file which we want to put it as an output of Logstash. You can also use other outputs like Graphite or StatsD, or you can have some monitoring like Zabbix or Nagio. So there are different methods you can use along with Logstash. So these are some of the one which I just want to show you, like in this stash you can prepare your own kind of stack. So it doesn't mean you have to use Elasticsearch or Kibana. So as I said, Elasticsearch is one of things. You can also use like MongoDB to there, or you can use S3 buckets, or it can be monitoring like Nagios, Zabbix, Graphite, or Datadog, or CloudWatch, or alerting mechanisms like it can be an email or PagerDuty, SNS, or Watcher. So there are different methods you can use along with the Logstash. Now, as we see, like Logstash, the architecture we spoke about, there are pipeline which is the Logstash pipeline, right? So the data source, the data coming will be coming to Logstash as an input, and that will undergo a lot of filters in the filtering section, and then it can go to the output. And so in our case, we'll be using Elasticsearch as the destination. Now, talking about the filters, you can also have different kind of filters used along with this Logstash. So you can use like grok or mutate, drop, clone, geo, IP. So there are different ways you can use the filters also in the Logstash configuration file. Now let's see what we are going to do. We are doing is as part of this tutorial is we are going to set up an Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana stack. So let's get started with our tutorial. So we are going to install Logstash on Linux. So I will also show you the how to install Elasticsearch and also Kibana. So you can have all those things ready, and we'll also talk about a lot of configuration files and how the data is configure the pipeline for Logstash. So then in the future videos we will be able to make use of it for advanced level. So we are going to start the installation with Elasticsearch. So the first thing is like you need to import the signing keys for Elasticsearch. So let me import that first, and we need to also create a repos for Elasticsearch, Logstash, and also Kibana. So let me do it for first Elasticsearch. So let's go to this path where the repos will be there for CentOS. So this is the CentOS machine. If you are using Ubuntu, you will have to change with the apt commands based on that. So but you can see all these commands in the direct Elasticsearch documentation itself, or Logstash or Kibana documentation, which I'll give you in the reference link as well. So let me create a repository now for Elasticsearch. So let me create it, and I'm going to enter the content inside it so that we can use that repo to install our Elasticsearch. So this is the way which I want to do it, the installation through a repository. But there are other ways also. If you have the binary files, you can go to the binary file and you can extract it, just the binary file. So let me copy this content where you can see the repository names, the URL which we are using, and the repository is enabled. So I'm using 1. If it's disabled, then we'll have to enable it at the time of installation. So let me save this file and let me install Elasticsearch. So I'm going to install Elasticsearch. So Elasticsearch. So it should take the content now from the repository, and it should start the installation of Elasticsearch. So let me wait for this installation to be completed, then we can do the installation for Kibana and also for Logstash. Okay, great. So the installation is completed for Elasticsearch, and you can see like if you want to access Elasticsearch, we need to enable the service, and also we need to start the Elastic service. So let me enable the service using sudo systemctl enable Elasticsearch. So you can see it has created a symlink. Now I want to start the service. So let's wait for that to be completed. Yep, so the service is started. Let me also check the status now. So status Elasticsearch service. So you can see it's active and running. Now you can access Elasticsearch on the localhost 9200 or this IP address of this machine with the port number 9200. So I also need to enable the ports using the firewall. So I will just run those commands as well. So let me add the 9200 for the firewall exception. and let me restart the firewall. So if I use curl localhost and 9200, now you can see we are getting the information about the Elasticsearch, right? So cluster name is Elasticsearch, those details. So the Elasticsearch installation is completed. Now let's go for the installation for Kibana. So I'm already in the location for repository. So you can see it's in the etc.m.repository.d folder. So I'm going to create another folder called kibana.repo, and I'm going to enter the details which we needed for the installation for Kibana. And don't worry, all these commands which I'm running, I will link into this video description of my GitHub. So you can go to the GitHub link and you will be getting all this documentation there. So you just need to copy and paste these commands. So I saved it. So now you can install yum install Kibana. So now let's wait for the installation to be completed. You can press yes. Okay, great. So the installation for Kibana is also completed. So let me see the status of Kibana service. So you can see the status is down or it's inactive. So first of all, I will enable the Kibana service. Then I will start the Kibana service. So if you don't want the Kibana or Elasticsearch to start automatically at the time of your system, you don't need to enable it. So you can just keep it just start. So you don't have to enable it. So once you enable it, every time your system starts, it will automatically start this service as well. So now we have the Kibana install. I will also add the port for 5601 for Kibana to the firewall extension. So let me run this command so that I can have this port opened. Let me reload the firewall. So we have completed the installation for Kibana, and you should be able to access the web page using your localhost 5601 port. Now let's install our Logstash. So same way, I'm going to create a repo inside the repo location. So it's called logstash.repo, and I'm going to insert some content over here. Similar to other contents, like we are using Logstash, and we are going to save this into the repo file. And now you can install Logstash using Logstash. So let me run that. So let's wait for the installation to be completed. Okay, good. So we can see Logstash installation is also completed, and we can enable the service for Logstash as well. Logstash.service, and we can start the service as well. Let's see the status now. So you can see Logstash service also running. Now the Logstash installation is completed. If you go to this location, user, share, and if you check the folders, you should be able to see a folder called, you can see Kibana is here. You can also see Logstash, right? And you can see Elasticsearch. So all these three applications are installed over here. So you should be able to see all the configurations and all those things over here. So you can see Logstash. If you go there, you have different kind of data, bin, Logstash core, the plugins, tools, all those things. Now if I go to bin, now you should be able to see the actual Logstash, the source. So you can see the Logstash as the application itself, logstash.bat, which is mainly used for Windows. Now you can see the setup.bat. So a lot of all these major files are over here. You also have to go to /etc logstash. You have a folder here. Now here, if you see, you should be able to see the major configuration files, like logstash.yaml file, pipelines.yaml, and if you also go to conf.d, we don't have anything over here, but you should be able to create our pipeline configuration here. So for example, if we want to create an input, output, and the filters, we will define that configuration over here, and when we start Logstash, we will be calling that config file. So let's first of all talk about a little bit, first, what are the different type of the configuration which we can create, or the pipeline content. So let's talk about that. Now the simple logstash command, what we can do is, like, we can call the logstash executable, and we can give the input output in the command line itself. So this will ask you to enter some input which will be shown as output. And some other the normal way how we do is, we create a config file. Inside that we will create the stanza where it will talk like input, with which files it has to get it as an input, and output. Here the output is also a file, so I'm going to save a file inside a root temp, and that file name called be output.log, right? So the input is like a root temp input.log. So we'll see how to create that, and what will be the output from Logstash. Now the other ways, like as default scenarios, like you will have an input, and the output will be sent to Elasticsearch. So there, what we will do is, we will configure Elasticsearch the host address, so that the system Logstash can send those things. Now we are missing the filter over here. We'll also can add filter in between input and output, so that it can filter some content, and the output can be based on that. So we'll see more about more technical and how to write all these things in the upcoming tutorial. But the first, this basic tutorial, I want to show you how to set up Logstash Elasticsearch Kibana, how to write where do you have to write all this config file, and what will be the output and all those things. So now let's see on hands-on. Now I will go back to the normal Logstash installation location, which will be user share Logstash bin, and I will call the Logstash file over here, and I will be running the Logstash the input st8 and output st18, right? So now it's running, and let me try to give some data here. Now you can see the output from the Logstash. It has came up in this format, right? It's coming from this localhost, the version, and the message is the one which I have sent. So I just press some of space, so you can see here also some entries has came, since those space also is showing up as some output. So that's how the normal simple way you can do it. Now let's do one thing. Let me clear out the screen. Let me go to cd/ or home location, and so it's we are on the root. Let me create a folder called temp, okay, and let me go into temp, and I will create a file called input.log. Okay, and I will save inside that like some entries what I want to put it in this file. Hello from tips for you. This is a tutorial on Logstash. Okay, so I just saved this. Now so you can see we have a file called input.log, and it's under this location. Now what I want to do is, I want to go to the again location of our Logstash. So user share Logstash, and I want to go to before running the Logstash, I want to create a config file. So we need to go to etc Logstash, and under a conf we need to go. So we need to go let me see what is the folder name. It's called conf.d. okay, and we don't have anything over here, so I will create a some sample file called a sample logstash dot conf. So this is the file I'm going to create, sample logstash.conf, and I'm going to enter the content which we just shown as part of our tutorial on how to create input output. So I'm going to paste this one. So this is going to look for the input file under root temp input.log, and it should output in the output.log. So let me save this file again. So we have this file name called sample logstash.conf. So I'll just copy this. Now I'll go to user share logstash bin. Okay, now we have the file logstash here, and I'm going to call this as a parameter. So I'm going to call this config file. So when we are running the logstash, I'm specifically telling you need to look for this config file for the pipeline. So I'm just running this. Let's see what it does. Now you can see the whole process is completed, and it's created a file called output.log. And one thing you need to do is, like I told to create the sample.log file under /etc/ so it's etc/ logstash, right? So it's not under etc/logstash conf.d. So we need to create this sample file under user share, the same place where you will have the logstash exe. So if I go bin, so I have created the logstash file here, sample logstash.conf, and I have sample logstash.conf where it will be reading the files, right? So now if I go back to this my location root where these files are there, temp, and you can see the both input and output files are there, right? So now you have in the input file like hello from this for you, this is tutorial, then just a hello, right? And if you see the output, you can see it has given the entries on that, right? So the first is hello from the tip for you, the next one is this is tutorial on logstash, and the next one is just hello, right? Now I'll just go and edit the input.log, and I just want to enter some more details here, or just consider like this is a file which keeps updating. This is testing, updating the log files. So I'm just trying to put some entries, and you can see whenever there should be a change, I hope it should be having the output.log file is getting updated, right? So whenever I have updated the input, you can see this is a tutorial on logstash, hello, and this is a testing, updating the log files. So all those things are getting updated here, right? So whenever there is an update on the log input file, it's getting updated in the output file as a timestamp and the message, right? So that's how the reason of Logstash, which will collect this data source or from the content from the data, and which can be used to as an input. Then we can also add filters in between, and then you can push this into Elasticsearch or some other outsource or outbound method, right? So that output we can use it in Elasticsearch, then we can display it in Kibana as a visualization. So that's the overall process what we will do in the upcoming tutorial, but I just wanted to show you like how the data is picked up by Logstash and how that is going through that pipeline process, and how it is going to the output and the destination. So that is all for this tutorial. So as I said, I will show you all these commands which I have used for installation in the GitHub lib, so you can check the GitHub link and you can download the documentation from there. So before I get completed, I would request you, like if you are new to my channel or if you want to watch more videos like this, click on the subscribe button and also like my videos, share and give your feedbacks, and your support is always valuable for me. So thank you for watching.